as you get started designing parts in any kind of CAD program, you'll be working with it. You'll get an understanding of how it works, like sketch, plane, extrude, and such, as we've been talking about. Pretty quickly, you're going to find yourself making mistakes, and you won't understand exactly what is happening. And a lot of these mistakes are made by not understanding how you're creating parts. And if you see down here in the timeline, understanding what has been created and maybe mistakes that you've made along the way, and understanding how to see things and do things properly by choosing or viewing things up here in the browser. Also going back and editing features properly rather than trying to make new features on top when maybe you didn't need to do that. So this is what I want to talk about here. This kind of gets wrapped up in a kind of a thing I call design theory. It's how you design things properly, how you understand your environment, how you actually build your part, the way that you build your part, not just the fact that you did. One exercise that we've done in classes lots is to do something like give a, let's say we give a drafted drawing out, like a piece of paper with an orthographic drawing on it or an actual physical part. We hand it out and we say, okay, everybody make this part. And when it's all done, what you find out is almost everybody makes the part in different ways. They all achieve the same result at the end. The part exists, but there's different ways to make it. And then you talk about it, like which way got the job done faster. And a lot of times people think, well, that's what the goal is. And it's like, no, it's almost never that. It's which gets the part done in a way that you could edit it in the future easily, that it's understandable to people. Right? It might be the difference between, down here in the timeline having one giant feature, like one giant sketch that makes the thing all at once, versus having multiple sketches which took longer to make, but each one is a separate item and very clear and understandable on how to edit it. Okay? So this will just be the beginning on how the timeline works and how the browser functions here. Okay, so we've kind of already mentioned in other videos that by default, the origin up here is turned off. So that's what the little lights are for. And if you open up anything with an arrow, you'll see things inside of it. So if the parent up here light is off, then it doesn't matter what light is on down here. The whole entirety of it is off. If I hover over them, you can see out in the window there or out in the field there that they do light up. So if I turn this on, then you can see it. So that's good if you want to see it. If you don't, then you turn it off, etc. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a shape. And in all these beginning videos, as I started to do this, I said, okay, this is going to be something on timeline. And so then I thought, well, I should make up a part first. But because these are beginning videos, I want to reiterate old concepts by actually having you watch me go ahead and make the video. And, I'll try not to do them in fast motion or anything like that either. We'll just go through step by step. So as we saw before, I want to make a shape. So I go to Sketch. I pick my plane. This is origin lights up now, so I can choose it. Go out here, and I want to make a shape. This time, different from all the others, I'm going to make a rectangle, and I'm going to use a centered rectangle. Works the same as a centered circle. There's not a hotkey for it. I'll pick it, pick the center, and now it's basically a symmetrical rectangle that you're making. I find that I use that one a lot more frequently. No dimensions yet. Topic of another video. Hit E for extrude, bring this up, and I come up like this. Now, before I hit OK, I want to show you what's already happened. Down here in the tree, there's already been a sketch created. I am currently in extrude. If I hit OK, another item in the tree will be made, which will be the extrude. If I hit cancel, then it goes away and I'm just in the sketch. If I were to say stop sketch and just get out of sketch at this point in time, it's highlighted still, click on the background. Well, maybe it wasn't. But anyways, in the tree here, I now have just the sketch. No problem. So I come up here to modify, extrude. I could just hit E, right? I pick this, I bring this up. Now you can see as I bring this up and hit OK, then I get my other object. All right? So two different things in the timeline for the object that you created. The first one being the sketch that goes with it, and the next one being the solid model that was created because of it, the solid entity. All right? Now, key component here. Let's say I wanted to make that original sketch. Well, let's say I want to make it visible. I want to see it. Where is it? Well, you come up here to sketches, the light bulb's on, so it should be showing, but if you open it up, you'll see that sketch 1 is not on. So we turn it on, and now you can see the sketch. that was made. By default, all CAD programs that I know of will take the sketch that you create, and once you create a solid model from it via extrude, revolver, or whatever else, it will hide the original sketch. And it makes sense because otherwise, you know, the more sketches and other things you got out here, it really starts to get cluttered. So if you want to see it, you turn it on, but when you don't, turn it off. All right. Now, small tangent. Just because we're talking about the browser up here and the sketch and the light, this is sketch 1. Well, if I go ahead and I make another sketch, let me just go ahead and do that. I'll click on here and I'll pick this and I will hit my centered rectangle again. We'll continue with that. I'll hit that. I'll bring this out somewhere or another. And then I'll just stop the sketch. I don't want to extrude it yet. If you look in the tree, sorry, by the way, if I say tree, that's more CATIA lingo coming out. This is the browser in this window here. If I look up here, the original sketch is hidden. The new sketch that I haven't done anything with is lit up, and you can see it, and you can tell the light bulb's on. Obviously. If you come down here into the timeline, the sketch I just created is here. The extrude for the block is there. The original sketch for the first block is there, of course, as well. Now, imagine this was a lot more complicated. We have a lot more parts here. I might want to know which sketch is which up here in the browser. What you can do if you want is you can click on it. It's kind of a slow 2 clicks. You can get in here and you could rename it. And you might call it, what do you want to call this? Like box sketch, let's say. So now you've just renamed the sketch. It's obvious it's the sketch because it's under sketches and it's got the sketch icon to it on it, and now it's named. So if I ever want to edit it, you know, I can edit the sketch right from there, or I can come down into the timeline, find it here, right click and edit. It's a little bit, the timeline could be a little bit disturbing to me because of the way it functions, but you can kind of, it's not too bad in contrast to other programs is kind of what I'm talking about. Say again, you have a whole lot of things on here. It's very, you know, sometimes kind of complicated. It's not really that bad, but you know, trying to find where the sketch is. For example, if I hover over or click on a feature, see this right here, this is the side of the block, but it's part of the solid. It will get these little lines above it. So it highlights it, it shows you that it's there, and that's cool. But if you name the stuff up here, then you don't have to think about it too much. Now, don't probably go name every single thing you do, but if you feel that that feature is going to be edited frequently in the future by yourself or other people, then it would be in everyone's best interest if you give it a name. All right? So this is probably where I might be kind of diverting from a lot of the Fusion videos online, and probably also why I'm kind of doing things like this to help everybody in my classes, and also kind of shine a light on all the rest of the maker community, or on this for the rest of the maker community, saying, hey, you know, it's great that you're making all these things and everything's getting done now, but as you start to collaborate with others, you need to come up with a good scheme, a good way that your team works on, or communicates on how to develop and how to build a part. Okay, so then next I'm going to take this and I'll go ahead and extrude that up like before. I'll hit that, okay, and now I have a couple things going on down here. So I have this one right here, which is box sketch, by the way. When you hover over the top, it tells you what it is. And here's again is that extrude, it highlights there. There's the sketch for that one, and there's the extrude there. If I want to edit one of these features, like I showed before, I could right click on this up here and say edit sketch, or you can come down here, right click, edit sketch. So you do this, and now you're in that sketch. It's a centered rectangle, so I can just grab it and drag it out. I stop sketch. Nothing major has changed, as in I didn't delete the sketch or didn't delete the number of lines that it had or anything. Sometimes if you do stuff like that, then you'll have to mess with the extrude, and that will be another video down the road, which is troubleshooting. How do you fix things that you break? Because that does happen frequently. So edit, make your change, and as long as you didn't do anything too, dramatic, everything will be fine. Now, if I want to change the thickness of this right here, here is my extrude, so I can right click on that. I can say edit feature, and now I can bring this up. Now, I'm bringing this up, and it's obviously much higher than the whole entire part was before, but that second feature, that second sketch and extrude was created on this face, so the sketch has a sketch plane that it's created on. Again, this is that face, and because that face moves, it will follow along with it, okay? because of the way that we created it. So I hit OK. That's up there. Now the next thing I want to do is something that is kind of a, well, it's a way that the timeline and the application functions, but it's also a common mistake that lots of people make. So I wanted to show you this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a sketch on this plane right here. And then I'm like, oh, oops, wait a second, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hit it, and I want to go on that one there. And then I hit a rectangle, and I make a shape, and I extrude it out. And I go, oops, I missed it. Bring it out like that, okay? And then I click on this face, and I say make a sketch. Oh, oops, didn't want to do that. I meant to pick that face, and so then I hit sketch. Oh, wait, no, hold on a second. I didn't mean that. I meant this face, and so then I hit sketch, and I come in here, and then I make a rectangle right here, and then I extrude this. Maybe I want to do a cut through all, and there I have that. So looking at your part right here, I have a sketch that made an extrude, then I had another sketch that I put on top, I extruded up, then I had another sketch on this wall and I extruded out, and then I had another sketch on this face and went through. All right? So then we look down in the tree here, and you can also see it up here, but if you look through, here is sketch, extrude, sketch, extrude, sketch, sketch, extrude, sketch, 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 extrude. You should be looking at this nonstop down here as you create, and if you see anything in here that you do not recognize, you gotta fix it, because it could cause a lot of mayhem down the road. This is why the need for the other video on troubleshooting will have to exist, because so here is the sketch that made that hole, but prior to that, this sketch right here was made by clicking on that face when I went into sketch and I went, oh, oops, wait, I didn't want that. Oh, oops, I didn't want that. What happens in this particular program is when you go into sketch, Fusion guys, would be great if you change this. When you go into sketch, if you do not create anything and you exit out, it creates a feature in the timeline about that. And all, the other programs will, if you go into sketch and you don't do anything, you leave and it just doesn't make that sketch, because why would it? It's an empty shell, so you don't need to do that. So you come back in time here and you say, let's see, this one right here, this one right here, that's that sketch, and you have to try to figure out which one is the right one. And so in the course of doing this, I say, okay, well, I wanted that one, I did not want that one, so let's go ahead and delete that. So you delete it, it goes away. Then we go through here and we figure out that that's the one that made the hole. These first two back here were nothing, so we'll go ahead and delete those also. Okay. Let's do a different thing. Well, let's do a similar thing. I pick this face here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Oh, wait. Yes, I did want to do that. So then you pick this, and you pick that. And then I go ahead and put a circle right up on here. Extrude that up. So you can see the arrow, and there you have it. So I've made this feature, and then you look down here and you go, sketch, extrude, sketch. Wait a minute. Oh crap, I made another one of those sketches. Okay, so this is the one right there with the circle. This is the one that's not, so let's go ahead and delete that. So this is going to be a little bit maybe kind of complicated, but that looked fine, right? And it was fine. And I know that all this stuff in the beginning especially seems really weirdly redundant that I keep saying, but what I want to show you here is let's undo that, and let's do something a little bit differently. And this is also why I set so much stuff up in the beginning under preferences. If you didn't do this certain thing, different things could happen. So let's say I go here to preferences, and if you didn't see this, this is one of the first videos on interface that I made. So we go here, and remember these buttons here, auto project edges on reference and auto project geometry on active sketch plane? These are checked by default, and we unchecked them. So let's say that I check this back and I hit OK. All right, no big deal. Let's say it just, I'm working off a default. So I go ahead and I do that again, and I come up here and I pick this. oh, whoops, oops, I didn't mean to do that, you know, right? And I come back and I pick it again. You can almost even tell something's different by the color, maybe. Anyways, I hit this and I make my circle. Extrude it up. Oopsie. Pick that, extrude. That was actually a little bit of an insight that something weird is happening. Hit OK, and here we go. Same thing, same part. Look in the timeline. Oopsie, got an extra sketch. So I go ahead and I delete that. And now we get a warning. So this is kind of a dreaded warning, but I don't want you to be too panicked about this. If you don't know what's going on, there's good reason to be panicked, but I want you to, somewhere down the road, be good enough at troubleshooting and fixing that you can say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this, or know how to do it the right way, so that you could fix things. Because here's the problem. This feature that I'm trying to delete is referenced by other features in the timeline, just what it says. You might believe that, oops, I'm deleting the original sketch, because again, if you've got like a whole bunch of extra sketches, you might not be sure, or you didn't check really well. Well, in this case, it's not. It's the one that we just touched the top, right? So if I say delete, then what happens is, another big mistake, potential mistake, everything still looks the same. It looks like it's fine, but you have to look down here in the tree and notice that there's an error. And over here, there's a little warning symbol. It kind of pops up but then goes away. And you're like, okay, I guess things are fine. So a handful of events start happening really quick. And this is why people that are new at this sometimes just get so frazzled because it seems so easy. And then all of a sudden, it's just ridiculously screwed up. And they can't even understand why it is. If you come over here, you could click on this and it'll tell you the error. And you can kind of open it up and maybe get something from there. Sketch plane is lost. Like, sketch plane is lost. We're going to talk about that. Or you can come over here and you could say review warning. So you hit that and this will come up here and then you can see the same thing. Okay, here is what happened. Every sketch, as we've talked about, needs a plane to be on. It's reference plane, as the error said, right? Now, the thing in preferences that we checked back was auto project geometry on active sketch plane. Again, this is the default, right? It's not that I just checked it to screw us up so I could talk about something. It's normally checked. Now, when it's checked and you go and you create a sketch, let's say, for example, I pick this up here and then I exit out, what I just did is I went into sketch on this plane right here, and as soon as I touched it and went into sketch, it auto projected that face. So that face is another kind of almost like a sketch, sort of, that exists right here. So just to clean it up, I'm going to get rid of that there. So when I had that other sketch prior to this error right here, when I made this sketch, I clicked on the face that was projected from the sketch prior, right? And that became my sketch plane, the base that this sketch was sitting on. So in effect, I made a sketch on the floor and then I took the floor away. Here, I got maybe a better analogy. You thought you were clicking on the floor, but what you actually clicked on was the carpet. And now that you've deleted the carpet, the sketch and the stuff that's built on top of that goes into an error. And so this becomes a big problem. So let me show you how to fix it. It's really, in this case, not a big deal, but all these little things we talk about, imagine I'm talking about them for a reason, but imagine that you have a much more complicated mess that you're dealing with, and not one thing affects another thing. One thing affects three things, and those three things affect each individually 3 or 4 more things, etc., and you've got a cascading huge mess on your hands, and you've got to figure out how to fix it. So here's what we do. You come down here to the offending element, right? So it's this sketch right here. Kind of an addendum. Sometimes the thing that's in error is because it's based on something that else is having a problem, but that thing isn't exactly having a problem. We'll have to talk about that later. This one here, this sketch, I right click on it, and what I can do is I can say redefine sketch plane. Again, understand, The picture in the window you see right here that looks fine, it is not fine. A thing that CATIA will do is it will either just turn all solid red and it won't let you do crap until you fix this. I kind of wish it would be that way. But this gives you this illusion that everything's fine, and then that's why new users continue to start building off of this kind of stuff and really end up messing it up. So I'm going to right click on the sketch, redefine the sketch plane, and now that the extrude goes away, because we're kind of like we're back in time, and it says, where would you like to place this sketch? Well, what I want to do is I want to put it right here, which seems like redundant, but remember what I said. Before, it was built on top of a sketch, so to speak, and that sketch was deleted. Now I want to put it on this face. It's the same, it's in the same distance, it's on the same, it's not the same plane, but you know, it's seemingly in the same area, right? But it's a different link, which is a huge another topic. So we click on that, and it says we're going to pick that surface as it. We hit OK, and everything's fine again. That's how you fix this error. All right? Huge deal. Keep mindful, very mindful of what's happening down here, because if you catch it as soon as it happens, it's probably going to be easy to fix. You could even just undo the last couple steps and redo it properly, and you'd be fine. If you catch it 16 steps down the road, you know, you're going to have a lot more mess to deal with. All right, one last fairly complicated topic to talk about. So let's say I want to take a feature, like say this feature right here that we said go through all, and instead of going through all, I would like to say just please go up to another feature or up to another object, right? So we've kind of seen that before. So what I do is I can click on, you know, say this object right here, and it shows me it down here in the tree, in the timeline. And so, okay, so I'm like, okay, there's the extrude. So I'll go ahead and I'll right click on that and I'll edit the feature. So here is my pocket that goes back in through all here. Also notice that everything else went away, because what just happened, you can see it down here in the timeline as well. To edit this, we're going back in time to the way this looked when I created this feature. So it goes ahead and hides all that other stuff. Okay, that's kind of the topic. But let me get there. So instead of going through all, I'm going to say go to object. So I hit this, and what I can do is I can pick something like maybe this surface right there, and you know, in this case here you get an error. It doesn't like that because this plane is off to the side. But what I can do is I should be able to pick that point right there, and it will make that pocket go back to, you know, that extent. All right, so the first half of this is just saying up to object. We can make a thing go up to an object. Hopefully that sits okay. Try that, play around with it. If you want to pause the video, go mess around with it. So what I want to do though is maybe, since I understood or just learned this up to object thing, I say, you know what, that would be really good for maybe another new thing that I might learn of making a construction element, or a construction, you know, in this case would be a plane. So a really great design theory type topic is, at some point in time, you make different planes, and instead of extruding, for example, a block up to a distance, or like this one up to an object, you have all these planes in existence somewhere, and you make your extrude go up to that plane, up to another plane, up to another plane. And if you ever want to change the object, it is maybe more efficient, it's more usable to just move the plane around. If you can just kind of go with that for a second, right? Maybe it is. So I want to make a new construction plane, and I want to say, I want this rectangle right here, this rectangle here, I want it to go up to a plane. So I'm going to make a plane first, and I'm going to offset it. I'm going to unhide origin. Sorry, I know that this is kind of weird. I'm going to highlight that plane. You see how I had to tilt it over? If I didn't tilt it over, see how I can't get at it? Remember this? If I hold down the first button, then I'll get these other things here. So if I don't want that face, I don't want that face on the bottom, I want that XY plane there. So I can go ahead and do that too, that way. So I take this and I bring it up, and let's bring it up to about there, you see? So what my mission is, hit OK. What my mission here is, I wanted to have this plane exist so that I could take this element here, this extrusion that I made, and instead of saying to go up 20, I want it to go up to plane. I wanted to go up to that plane. And so really common thing to do. Trust me with that, I guess, right? So then I go back to, so I click on this and I look back in the tree. Okay, so that's down here. So I right click on it and I say edit feature, and instead of being a distance, I say up to object, except the problem here is the plane's not there. What has happened is, again, I am editing back in time, and back in time, that plane hasn't been created yet. It hasn't been developed, invented, right? So I can't do it. So what we need to know how to do is use the timeline's ability, this bar right here, to go back in time, or to drag and drop elements in the timeline to get them where I want them. So if I wanted this object to go up to this plane would have had to been created prior to me making this element. So I could delete this. Let me show you the way that you would do it. Well, if you did it with forethought, you would have done it before, like right in the beginning. You would have said, I know that I'm going to have all these features going up to all these planes. I'm going to make a bunch of planes first and a bunch of lines and a whole bunch of other reference geometry, another video, that I can have all these objects go up to, because then editing maybe will be a lot easier. Or you can realize that you're doing it after the fact and you say, okay, yeah, that would have been better if I would have made that first, because again, we don't always know everything right in the beginning how we're going to develop a product. You take your timeline and you bring it back prior, at least prior to this feature right here. So I could grab this and I could drag it back there. So that now is prior to that extrude, right? I would say to go back at least one more step, because in the timeline, as a convenience, I really like my sketches and my extrudes to be kind of right next to each other. I don't think I want to put a plane between the sketch that made that shape right there and the extrude for that shape. So I could go back one more notch. Now, what would be even better is if I just continued back to the very beginning. Hopefully that's sitting okay. So now all I have is my original origin. If I needed that plane to be offset, say, from this face, well, then obviously I can't go back to the very, very beginning, because that face doesn't exist yet. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to offset this from origin here, or from the XY plane. Pick this, drag it up, we'll just guess and say that far, and hit OK. Now it's made. The only thing it's dependent on, links, is the XY plane. Bring it forward. Now our plane exists. The nice thing here is, even if I made it too low or way too high, now I could look at it and edit and go, oof, yeah, that's a little bit higher than I wanted it. So I could come back here in time, on the timeline down here, and I could right click, edit feature, and now I can't see anything, but maybe I go, well, I think it's just like 10 lower, so we'll just go, we'll type in 160, drop it down a little bit, and maybe we like that a little bit better. We can also do what we're about to do to bring this up to the plane and then see where it fits, and then of course move it from there. So I find this feature again, click on it, shows up in the timeline down here, right click on the element, edit feature, and now instead of distance I can say to object, and because it still exists, because it was created prior to the shape, we can see the plane here, and I can pick it. By the way, a plane is not this little square, it's an infinite plane that's flat. So in the other instance where I was not able to go, what was that, the hole originally, up to a face that was off to the side, that plane on the side was not an infinite plane, it was just, in the way Fusion looks at it, this face is the plane right here, and on the outskirts of it, it doesn't exist. If you pick or make a real plane, it goes on infinitely. So the extrude would run into it. I guess that's the point there, right? So now it goes up to that feature. I can hit OK, and there you have it. If I want to change the height of this extrude, then I can just go back to here. I could edit feature, and I could drag it up more, hit OK, and it follows along. All right? So keep in mind that this exercise is not about the validity or the purpose or the reason why we might go up to a plane. The object, learning object here is to understand that you can take your bar here and you could slide it back in time to create elements before or after, whenever, you know, different features in the timeline. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo this a bit. So I'm hitting Control Z, and I'll just keep hitting Control Z. Mash, mash, mash. And so what I've done is I just undid everything. Keep in mind that's a super valid thing to do. Just Control Z whenever you feel that you made a mistake. Now we're here with, again, with the plane in the future. It's, well, current, right? And I can't have this go up to it. What you can do, as long as this is not dependent upon any feature, when what I mean is if this plane was offset from this face or from this face, it would not let me do what I'm about to do, which is this. So if I grab this and I can move it, I can drag that. See that? Now the plane is back here. This object is right there. All I have to do is take this and drag it before that. See, it's back here. And now if I go to edit this feature, I could go up to plane there. Because of everything we said, I would probably go ahead and keep dragging that back. And that's another way you can do this. Okay, let me delete that and show you one last thing. So say, for example, I did make that plane off of this face right here and I drug it up. For whatever reason, it shows up as a bigger square. I hit OK. There it is. So this is it in the future, in current, right? So here it is in our timeline. If I want to drag it back like I just did before, this plane is based upon that face right there. How could I possibly have this plane be created off of that face before that face exists? You see? So if I take this and I drag it back, it'll go back, 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 and then see me moving the cursor here? It sticks. I can't move it back any further than right here because this extrude right there is that object. Okay? So that's going to be good enough for right now. That's just a kind of an introductory, a little bit more than an introductory look at how the timeline works, how the browser up here works, how to do a little bit of manipulation, and understanding the order in which you make things has an effect on other objects. All right? So that's good for now.